Bundy jumped out of this second-story window at the front of the Pitkin County Courthouse this morning. He was scheduled for a court appearance and apparently had been locked into the law library by sheriff's deputies while attorneys were arguing a motion to strike the death penalty. Witnesses say he left in a hurry, however, nobody saw him open the window, and he escaped clean in an unknown direction.
Imagine being a law enforcement officer who captured one of America's most dangerous serial killers, only to watch him slip away, not once, but twice. This is the story of how Ted Bundy, one of history's most notorious criminals, managed to escape from custody on 2 separate occasions, leaving law enforcement red-faced and communities terrified. Our story begins on October 16, 1975, in the early morning hours of Salt Lake City, Utah. Officer Bob Hayward was finishing his shift, parked in front of his house, when something caught his attention. A tan Volkswagen Beetle crept past with its headlights off. What happened next was part luck and pure instinct. The Beetle parked directly in front of his neighbor's house where 2 teenage daughters lived alone. Hayward turned on his brights to read the license plate. The driver panicked and sped away. The chase was on. After blowing through multiple stop signs, the Beetle finally pulled into an abandoned gas station. One man stepped out with shoulder-length dark hair, wearing blue jeans and a black turtleneck. He smelled the marijuana and had his hands raised. His story? He was a lost college student who'd been watching a movie at the local drive-in and couldn't find his way home. There was just one problem. Officer Hayward had driven by the theater earlier. The movie the man claimed to see wasn't playing that night. But what Hayward found inside the car was far more disturbing. The passenger seat was completely missing. In its place was an open bag containing items that would make anyone's blood run cold. A ski mask, crowbar, ice pick, box of trash bags, gloves, pantyhose, rope, wire, and in the trunk, a pair of handcuffs. The man's name was Theodore Robert Bundy. While they didn't know it yet, they had just caught one of the most prolific serial killers in American history. Act 2, The First Escape. By June 1977, Ted Bundy had transferred to Aspen, Colorado to face a murder charge. But Bundy had something most defendants don't: a law degree and boundless confidence.
I'll plead not guilty right now, and your grand jurors being present.
He decided to represent himself in court. This wasn't just ego, it was strategy. Representing yourself meant special privileges, no shackles, no handcuffs, access to the law library. And Ted Bundy intended to use every advantage. In his cell, Bundy began a peculiar training regimen. Every night, he would climb onto the top of his bunk and practice jumping down, landing in specific ways to minimize injury. He was conditioning his ankles, preparing for something big. He also did something clever with his appearance. He wore multiple layers of clothing under his courtroom outfit. He got a haircut. He shaved his beard. He studied the courthouse layout obsessively, memorizing every hallway, every door, every window. Then came June 7th, 1977. During a courtroom recess, Bundy asked permission to visit the courthouse law library to research his case. A guard stood by at the door, watching, but not closely enough. When Bundy saw his opportunity, he moved. He made his way to the second-story window and jumped. The fall was hard. He injured his ankle despite all the training. But the moment he hit the ground, Bundy was off and running. Off he went across the street, over a fence, into an alleyway, toward a river, and straight into the mountains. Unfortunately for authorities, it took them around 10 minutes to realize he was even gone. The manhunt that followed was massive. Roadblocks went up. Bloodhounds were deployed. Radio stations broadcasted warnings. Newspaper ran headlines about the escaped killer. 150 police officers combed the mountains for a single man. But Bundy planned this moment for weeks. He'd been studying maps used as evidence in his trial. He'd put on a second layer of clothing, which he quickly removed to change his appearance. For 6 days, Ted Bundy was free, wandering through the Colorado wilderness. He broke into cabins, stealing food, warm clothes, and even a rifle. But the mountains proved more challenging than he anticipated. A rainstorm hit. He got lost. He walked in circles. The cold weather was brutal, and his injured ankle slowed him down greatly. By day 6, Bundy was desperate. He lost over 20 pounds, weak and disoriented. He found himself back in Aspen at a golf course where he spotted an old Cadillac with the keys inside. That was his mistake. 2 police officers spotted the car zigzagging down the road, assuming they had a drunk driver. Instead, they found a sober but severely weakened Ted Bundy. His nose was wrapped in bandages. He wore glasses, but recognition was instant. He was arrested just 2 blocks from where he had jumped from the window. The escape had lasted 6 days, and the authorities were humiliated. And Ted Bundy, he immediately started planning his next move. Act 3, the second escape. Back in custody, Bundy now faced additional charges for escape. He had to wear shackles and handcuffs in court. Security was tightened, but none of it mattered, because Ted Bundy was already working on something far more elaborate. Over 6 months, Bundy's fiancée, Carol Ann Boone, and other supporters smuggled $700 into the prison, and somehow, Bundy obtained a detailed floor plan of that very jail cell he was in, even a hacksaw blade. Every night when other inmates were in the shower, Bundy sawed away at the ceiling of his cell. The ceiling was reinforced with steel bars, so this took time, patience, and precision. Eventually, he created a hole no bigger than 1 square foot. This is when Bundy started to do some extreme things, like losing weight deliberately. He constantly complained about the food, reducing his meal portions. Over several months, he lost 35 pounds, just enough to squeeze through that tiny hole. Losing weight wasn't enough. Every night, Bundy would crawl through the hole to explore the space above, familiarizing himself with the layout, planning his route. Then he waited for the perfect moment. December 1977. The holiday season meant reduced staff at the jail. On the night of the escape, Bundy piled books under his bed covers to create the illusion of a sleeping body. Then he went through the hole one final time. This time, he didn't stop. He crawled through the ceiling space until he reached the apartment of a prison guard who was out celebrating the holidays with his wife. Bundy dropped into the apartment, opened the guard's closet, and put on civilian shoes. A pair of blue jeans, a gray turtleneck, blue tennis shoes. Then he simply walked out the front door.
Today, the FBI took over the search and issued a fugitive warrant charging Bundy with unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. Agents feel the former Utahan is out of Colorado, possibly out of the country. The search reaches all over the West right now and the East Coast, Canada, and Mexico. Dozens of leads are coming in, but so far nothing solid. Some officers feel it's going to be a long time before Theodore Bundy is behind bars again.
By the time the guard sounded the alarm 17 hours later, Ted Bundy was halfway across the country. He stole a car, hitched rides, took a bus to Denver, then boarded a plane to Chicago. From there, he took a train to Michigan, stole another car to Atlanta, and finally caught a bus to Florida. Now in Florida, he checked into the Holiday Inn, where he rented a room near Florida State University. The most dangerous serial killer in America was free again, and this time he was living next door to a college campus full of young women. Act 4, The Deadly Consequences. Ted Bundy's second escape wasn't just an embarrassment for law enforcement, it was a death sentence for innocent people. For a brief period, Bundy tried to start a normal life. He applied for construction jobs, but without identification, employment was impossible. So he returned to what he knew best: theft and violence. What happened next would haunt investigators forever. On January 15, 1978, less than a month after his escape, Bundy entered the Chi Omega sorority house at Florida State University in the dead of the night. In just 15 minutes of pure horror, he moved from room to room with a wooden club. He viciously attacked 4 women as they slept. Margaret Bowman, 21 years old, was beaten so severely she died almost instantly. Lisa Levy, 20, suffered the same fate. 2 other women, Karen Chandler and Kathy Kleiner, their injuries were so severe that they required reconstructive surgery. Bundy wasn't done. He walked 8 blocks to another apartment and attacked another student, Cheryl Thomas, leaving her with lifelong hearing loss and severe injuries. Amazingly, the carnage didn't end there. 3 weeks later, on February 9th, 1978, 12-year-old Kimberly Leach was walking across her school's basketball court in the rain when Bundy approached. She was just a child running to class. She never made it to that classroom. Kimberly Leach would be Ted Bundy's final victim. Her body was found weeks later in an abandoned pig shed. Act 5, the final capture. On February 15, 1978, Officer David Lee was on patrol in Pensacola when he noticed an orange Volkswagen Beetle with its lights off. The car looked out of place. Lee followed it and ran the plates. Well, you guessed it, stolen. When Lee turned on his place lights, the Beetle tried to speed away. But this time, there would be no escape. The car stopped. Ted Bundy got out, but he didn't surrender. He fought. He kicked. He tried to grab the officer's gun. Lee fired a warning shot. Bundy ran. Lee fired again. It didn't work. Lee struck him with his pistol, and finally, after 2 escapes and years of manhunting, Ted Bundy was captured for the last time. In conclusion, Ted Bundy's trial became a media sensation, the first ever broadcast on national television. He charmed audience, played the role of the wrongfully accused, and even proposed to his girlfriend in court. But the evidence was overwhelming. He was convicted and sentenced to death. On January 24th, 1989, after 10 years on death row, Ted Bundy was executed via electric chair. Ironically, the person who flipped the switch was a woman. Outside the prison, crowds of thousands gathered with fireworks, signs, and t-shirts reading, "Burn, Bundy, burn." His final words were simple: "I'd like you to give my love to my family and friends," even at the end, playing the nice guy. Bundy eventually confessed to 30 murders, though investigators believe the real number could exceed 100, with some killings possibly starting out when he was just 14 years old. But it's the murders that came after his second escape that remain the most haunting. 3 lives were stolen because of a failed system, because a narcissistic killer outsmarted his capturers and was given one more chance to kill. Margaret Bowman, Lisa Levy, and Kimberly Leach didn't have to die. Their families didn't have to endure that grief. Those sorority sisters didn't have to wake up to that nightmare. Ted Bundy escaped from prison twice, but he couldn't escape the justice system forever. History remains a chilling reminder that intelligence and charm can mask pure evil, and that the cost of underestimating a psychopath can be measured in innocent lives lost. The question that haunts law enforcement to this day: how many lives could have been saved if those cell bars had been just a little stronger, if that ceiling had just been a little thicker, if someone had been watching just a little closer? We'll never know, but we will remember the names of the victims. Thank you for staying till the very end of this video. If you appreciate this sort of content, please subscribe and hit the bell for notifications when I post new videos. Thank you, stay safe, and I will see you on the next one.